All right, guys, happy Tuesday. I'm excited today because finally the media has told the truth and the whole truth about something that I actually said. This was a real headline. How great is this? It just says that Candace Owens, far-right pundit Candace Owens, claims TikTok is socially engineering men to be gay. I did indeed say that. I also said that it's other apps as well, but TikTok especially, yeah, we're starting to see algorithms that are encouraging men to be homosexual. But first, you guys, more importantly, I'd like to take a second to pour some out for my fallen homie, Tucker Carlson, a moment of silence because he is over. I am talking over, career canceled, done with, do not listen to a word he says anymore because I've been reliably informed by the people that I absolutely can't stand and never listen to that Tucker has committed the gravest of sins for which he shall never be forgiven. Yeah, he hosted a monster on his platform who said some things that were completely unsayable. And so, yes, hashtag cancel Tucker Carlson, I guess, or whatever. That's what's coming up on Candace. I'm not kidding you guys. Trending right now, this very minute over on X. The trend reads, Tucker Carlson platforms, you guessed it, Nazi apologetics. Oh, Tucker, no, my man. How could you descend into this sort of chaos? Surely you're not doing this. Am I the only person that when I see this, I just instantly go, okay, like, yeah, definitely probably not what's happening at all. What's really probably happening is there's a conversation that the media's henchmen do not want the public to hear. And so you're probably thinking, who did he host? My gosh, it must have been some crazy KK Klansman who just was waiting for years. He's got his hood on. They must be talking about terrible things. He must have had on a literal neo-Nazi. No. Of course, it's never that, you guys. He had on, and this really actually is what I would term a neo-Nazi because today they are making it so that if you know history, if you speak about history outside of the confines of the mainstream media, then you are, in fact, a new age Nazi. They can't allow that. You're not allowed to know things. We're supposed to be living in this ever present. You know, this is the Orwellian agenda. There is no history. It's just the present. It's just the now. And so who did he actually have on? Well, Tucker Carlson tweeted this alongside a very long interview with a historian who looks really friendly. His name is Daryl Cooper. Tucker Carlson wrote, Daryl Cooper may be the best and most honest popular historian in the United States. His latest project is the most forbidden of all, trying to understand World War II. Oh, and that's how you know you are going to get canceled. You are not allowed to talk about World War II. They spent so much money, so many years putting us all in a classroom and severely propagandizing us to believe this is good and this is evil and there is no in between. This is black and this is white and there is no in between. Carefully orchestrated an agenda that they shared with us and we all believed it. And God forbid somebody interjects now and then another fact. I did this, by the way. This is how I really got on their bad people list. Like Candace has got to go. We hate her. I shared with the public. It all began with me sharing that documentary that I saw. And the backstory was that a priest said Winston Churchill was a war criminal. A priest told me that. A priest from London told me that. And I said, what are you talking about? Winston Churchill, like the hero? And he said he was a war criminal and you should watch this documentary, The Savage Peace. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind that a genocide could have happened in peacetime, executed by the Allies, and nobody told us. That is what blew my mind. Again, PBS and BBC documentary, not a Candace Owens documentary, as they would have you believe. So anyways, I knew when I saw that tweet that Tucker Carlson did maybe the same thing. He interjected or had somebody interject some alternative facts. And of course, when you start speaking about World War II and you understand how severely propagandized we were, you inevitably start speaking about the mainstream media and what exactly those classrooms are for. So I'll show you this first clip where they're just talking about the topic of propaganda in general. Take a listen.
So that's what bothers me about the recording of history. I mean, I think what happens matters, reality matters. And if you find that sort of everything that happens, not just 80 years ago in Dresden, but things that are happening in like LA County 20 years ago, if they just disappear, in some cases you can't even find them on Google. Like that's a level of manipulation that's just mind control. That's really scary and dangerous.
And I think the propagandists throughout the 20th century, ever since the sort of the rise of mass media, I've really understood that that's exactly what it is, especially once it goes on for a generation or two and kids are raised up, and this is what they're being taught, because it forms for them their not just their view of the world, but their view of themselves. Like our identities as individuals and our identities that we attach ourselves to collectively are all a result of the stories we tell ourselves and that we hear as we're growing up. And so if you change those stories, all of those things change as well.
Look at that guy. Where's his little mustache? You just look at him? So much evil. You can really understand why they are angry, why people are upset, why they are calls to get Tucker canceled. How could he host this monster on his show who's speaking about how we all get sort of programmed when we're children and it becomes a part of our identity? And then when somebody introduces an alternative fact, you kind of go, wait a minute, why wasn't I told this a lot earlier? And can you imagine if that fact that they're trying to introduce to you is that Winston Churchill, who essentially, like we are trained up to believe in classrooms across the West, was just the greatest hero of all time, one of the greatest heroes of all time? Could you imagine if the fact that they're interjecting is that maybe he wasn't, like maybe he wanted the war to happen, like maybe he was serving some other masters other than the public? Like that would be so crazy. Please, Tucker, don't do that. Oh no, he's about to. Daryl Cooper, take it away.
As soon as that war's wrapped up on the German side, Hitler starts firing off peace proposals to Britain and France because they had already declared war. He didn't expect them to declare war, actually. Like there's a famous scene where he kind of throws a fit when he finds out that they did do that. And so he doesn't want to fight France. He doesn't want to fight Britain. He feels that's going to weaken Europe when we've got this huge threat to the east, the communist threat over there. And he starts firing off peace proposals. He says, let's not do this. Like, we can't do this. And of course, a year goes by, 1940 comes around, and they're still at war. And so he launches his invasion to the West, takes over France, takes over Western and Northern Europe. Once that's done, and the British have, escaped at Dunkirk. There's no British force left on the continent. There's no opposing force left on the continent. In other words, the war is over, and the Germans won. Okay,
by what point?
Fall of 1940, right? So there's literally no opposing force on the continent. And throughout that summer, Adolf Hitler is firing off radio broadcasts, giving speeches, literally sending planes over to drop leaflets over London and other British cities, trying to get the message to these people that Germany does not want to fight you. Like, we don't want to fight you. Offering peace proposals that, it said, you keep all your overseas colonies. We don't want any of that. We want Britain to be strong. The world needs Britain to be strong, especially as we face this communist threat and so forth. Like, this is what's going on. And I think that if there were people in Britain who, if they hadn't put it this way, if they hadn't been so successful at delegitimizing the peace approach by demonizing Neville Chamberlain and so forth, and holding him responsible for the invasion of Poland, that people would have been, they would have understood, like, we don't need a repeat of the First World War. We don't, which is not what ended up happening, but that's what everybody thought was going to happen. And so Churchill, you have a guy, Churchill wanted a war. He wanted to fight Germany. And the reason that I don't begrudge him that, people can national leaders, you can fight whoever you want. If you feel like your the long-term interests of the British Empire are threatened by the rise of a powerful continental power like Germany, and you need to check that those are great power games, and you play them the way you feel like you need to play them. That's fine. The reason I resent Churchill so much for it is that he kept this war going when he had no way to go back and fight this war. All he had were bombers. He was literally, by 1940, sending bomber fleets to go firebomb the Black Forest, just to burn down sections of the Black Forest. Just rank terrorism, going through and starting to, what eventually became just the carpet bombing, the saturation bombing of civilian neighborhoods, to kill, is the purpose of which was to kill as many civilians as possible. And all the men were out in the field. All the fighting age men were out in the field. And so this is old people, it's women and children, and they knew that. And they were wiping these places out. It was as gigantic scaled terrorist attacks, the greatest, scale of terrorist attacks you've ever seen in world history.
Why would he do that?
because it was the only means that they had to continue fighting at the time. You know, they didn't have the ability to reinvade Europe. And so he needed to keep this war going until he accomplished what he hoped to accomplish. We know now there's actually a really great series of books. It's one of the best. I recommend it to everybody, but it's really expensive now. And it's 6 long volumes called History of British Special Operations in the Second World War. And one of the books gets into the level of just the extent of media operations, propaganda operations, everything that they were running in the United States to eventually drag us into that war.
Blah, blah, blah. I'm not listening. Arrest that man. Where is the Ministry of Truth? By the way, anything that he just said, don't listen to that. I wanted to show you what not to listen to because that man is crazy. That man is like literally Hitler. I can't believe Tucker Carlson would do this. How dare you interject alternative facts? We put together these textbooks because we wanted to make sure that Americans and people in the West went rah, rah, rah. Everything Winston Churchill did was okay. And so when crazy, I am talking kooky people like Candace Owens get up there and they're like, hey, Dresden was kind of a Holocaust. It happened like on Ash Wednesday, the eve of Ash Wednesday. That's kind of wrong. Then you freak out. And someone like Tucker Carlson gets on Joe Rogan and he's like, hey, dropping a bomb was a war crime, a nuclear bomb on praying Catholics in Nagasaki. Yeah, that's not a good thing. You go, oh my gosh, get this man off the airwaves. I just cannot believe I am sitting through another person saying these things. How dare you say that murdering innocent civilians, women and children is wrong? It's monstrous. And so what are we going to do? How are we going to take care of this guy? Well, we're going to make sure that we crush his reputation. That's what we do to defeat our opponents. We crush their reputations. I demand he lose his job, Daryl Cooper, wherever he works. I don't even know where he works. He's an historian. Don't care. Okay. He better lose his job. And if he does lose his job and he survives it like Tucker Carlson and then he still has a huge audience, well, then we just got to ramp up the truth, which is that man's a liar. And so lo and behold, you hop onto Twitter and people are freaking out. And of course, one of these weird things about when they freak out is they never point out which fact is wrong. They never do that. No, they never say like that person's factually incorrect. They just start calling you names. And it's beautiful to see that they just keep running the exact same play. Imagine going to a football game and they just keep running the exact same play, expecting the other side not to catch on. Oh, you're going to run that same offensive play? Yeah, well, the defense might catch on that you're doing the exact same thing. But these guys, no, not these heroes. Not all heroes wear capes. And the people that are on Twitter today, let me show you how they reacted to this conversation that Tucker had where they introduced some alternative, another way of saying it is forbidden facts of truth. Here we go. So you had this guy, Ian Haworth, who's just so mentally unwell. He writes, too many conservatives out there will totally ignore Tucker Carlson nodding along at World War II and Holocaust revisionism and or denial because they want to go on his show. There's a word for that. Whore. Well, there you go. If you listen to anything that happened there, okay, you're a whore. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Duh. Then you've got Eric Erickson's tweet, which I feel like has been copy and pasted at least once a month about everybody. Didn't expect Tucker Carlson to become an outlet for Nazi apologetics, but here we are. I'm sorry, are we watching the same conversation? That guy looks like a really nice, well-read historian, but no. Don't let the internet try to tell you any differently than whoever you just heard is the second coming of Adolf Hitler. Helene Allen tweeted this: the only surprise about Tucker Carlson turning into an outlet for Nazi apologists is how fast it happened. I would have predicted a slightly slower descent, but maybe Fox was keeping more control over him than anyone realized. I love that so much because that's always their move where they're just like, oh my, he's come undone since he left corporate media. They were doing their best to keep him, to keep that horse in the stable. And then, but look at him, he's crazy. He can't be controlled. No, he's just out of your control. Okay, he's just out of your control. But they try this exact same strategy over and over again. You've got E.W. Erickson who writes this: didn't expect Tucker Carlson to become an outlet for Nazi apologetics, but here we are. Thanks, Eric. There we go. You never expected it. You got Josh Hammer. He tweeted this: if you find yourself, quote unquote, just asking questions over whether the real villain in World War II was actually Churchill, maybe pausing consider the distinct possibility that you're actually just a complete effing moron. They seem, obviously Tucker's crazy, not them. right? They are hinged, and Tucker is unhinged. And of course, again, absent any facts, they're not like, oh no, that didn't happen. They're not saying, oh no, like there weren't leaflets dropped proposing a peace plan. They're not introducing that. They're not like, oh no, like Winston did not okay firebombing of innocent civilians. They're just saying that you're not allowed to introduce that because they just want you to keep talking about Adolf Hitler. And it's not possible in their mindsets that there were maybe bad guys on both sides. That just can't happen. That's not the way a fairy tale novel works. You got to have a nice button, and this guy was all amazing, and this guy was completely awful. The end. Welcome to the American education system. But this tweet has got to be my favorite, and I'm going to tell you why, because it is just, I just love it. I just love everything about it. It's from Bruce Arthur. He tweeted this. He's talking about Tucker Carlson. He literally went from hanging out with Danielle Smith and Jordan Peterson and Conrad Black to go do some of the most servile, low-rent Russian propaganda imaginable. And then he includes an update. Tucker Carlson has recently gone into full-on Nazi apologetics with an approving nod from Elon Musk, which again was quite predictable. I love that when they're sort of like basically saying like, oh, your life could have been so much better. You didn't have to do this, Tucker. Like you could be eating, like Tucker Carlson, if he just didn't do this, like he could have been with Conrad Black. He could have been enjoying rubbery chicken at the Conrad Hilton, you know, being invited to speak amongst people that applaud like this. But instead, he turns to people that want to hear real conversations, who just want to know what's actually happening in the world. Is that what he really wants? Is that what you actually want, Tucker? Have you paused to ask yourself if this is the path that you really want to go down? You're not going to be able to hang out with Conrad Black anymore. Like that's like, I mean, are you sure, Tucker? Because I'm really sure Tucker wakes up every morning and he just resents the fact that he can't hang out with people like Josh Hammer and Ian Hallworth. I'm sure he wakes up every day when he looks at his beautiful wife and his beautiful family who love him, and he goes fishing and he wakes up and he goes, I really resent the fact that these people don't want me anymore. It's laughable. You should laugh. You should laugh because these people cannot see how insufferable they are. They don't understand. They cannot comprehend that nobody likes them. They're, like I said, what's really happened now is they just created their own echo chamber. They're all speaking to each other, signaling to each other, writing articles to each other. And yeah, they'll get a few hits. The boomers might believe the narrative that Tucker Carlson really went on there and defended Nazis and Hitler, just like every single person that they don't like. They charge them with the same made-up crime that nobody actually did, because what we're actually doing is we're reading books. When we start to read books, when we start to read these historians, we're very, very shocked by how little we knew. And then we start to realize that the media is not our friend. The media is the enemy. And the American people have accepted that as the reality. And the American people hate you, okay? They hate you. We all hate you, and you just can't see it. No one is going to stop listening to Tucker Carlson, but everyone has stopped listening to you. Because you just have this air of pretension about you. Like, how are you not sick of yourselves? How do you not look in the mirror and want to vomit because of your hubris, because of the way that you look at people? You resent people for not listening to you. That's literally it. You have decided that you are the authorities, right? You are so authoritarian in your own mind that you've started to hate people who don't believe you. And let me be very clear. We don't believe you. And we hate you right back. Go away. We've heard you already. We're all Nazis. We're all white supremacists. We're all Hitler lovers. We're all backwards. We're not cool. We can't eat rubber chicken with you. We don't want to. Go away. Write your stupid hit pieces about Tucker Carlson. And you know what's going to happen tomorrow? He's still going to be at the top of the Spotify charts. So plan your next move. What is it? A totalitarian regime, which you're already trying to implement? You're going to get them banned from movement. You're going to say Tucker Carlson can't leave Florida. Go plan your next step, because we're not going backwards anymore. You hate us, and we hate you right back. So kudos to Tucker. Kudos to Daryl Cooper. Kudos to every single person that believes that the people that they are speaking to have a right to think. Because that's what it is. They have a right to think. They have a right to know. And we don't need people maintaining boundaries for us. And that's all I want to say about that topic. All right, guys, I want to take a brief pause to remind you about Preborn. Obviously, you know they are doing such amazing work because we have Planned Parenthood, which continues to rake in billions despite dwindling clients. The biggest takeaway is that Planned Parenthood is generating vast profits, including millions in taxpayer funding. Well, with Preborn, we are actively stealing their clientele, meaning that we get to save and rescue the babies that they are trying to kill. Preborn operates on a very slim budget, rescuing over 200 babies' lives every single day with no government funding. Preborn's network of clinics is situated in the darkest corners of the nation, competing head-to-head with abortion giants, and they need our help now more than ever. When you donate $28 to Preborn, you will offer a free ultrasound to an expectant mother that is caught in a crisis. Because once she hears that heartbeat and sees that precious life, her baby's chance at life will double. Sponsor a precious baby's life today. Your tax-deductible gift will go directly towards saving babies' lives. You just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. Again, that's pound 250 baby. Or you can go to preborn.com/Candace. That's preborn.com/Candace. All right, guys, now let's get into this little fun update. I loved this so much. I gotta throw it to my Australian people. I love to see that the people are just more awake and jumping right back into this topic of the media who so clearly resents us. Like I really do view it now where everything that I'm watching in the political scene just feels like a movie. I'm bored of politics. It's all so monotonous, you know? It's like watching Game of Thrones and you see like brothers and sisters quarreling and you're like, okay, but wait, the White Walkers are coming. Like people that are actually trying to end our freedoms and usher in a totalitarian state. And what bigger proof of this than what's happening right now in Australia, where there are actual calls to ban my visa. Like Candace Owens cannot travel to Australia because she is too dangerous. And so, you know, I thought, how do they sell that to the Australian people? Well, how they sold it was that they are allowed to ban people for character issues. So if you don't have a good enough caliber of character, then the government can ban you. And so I said to myself, wow, that's, listen, I'm a person that respects the law of the land wherever I travel. I've never been in trouble traveling overseas. I've never been in trouble here in America. Like maybe I'm going to have to respect that if that is their legitimate process. And it's interesting because then I decided to just look up some people that were going to Australia this year, who were selling out, you know, stadiums and who were going to perform and who were also touring just like Candace Owens. And surely these people must have the kind of character that Australian government and the media members love and that they adore, because I haven't heard any calls to ban them. So here is who's performing. In the event that I get banned, I want you to know who you are allowed to go listen to. And first up, by the way, is Busta Rhymes. I haven't heard his name in a while. He will be performing in Moore Park in West Melbourne this year in Australia. He, by the way, if you're wondering about his history, back in 2015, he was charged with felony assault on suspicion of throwing a cardboard cup and a health shake at the head of a Steel Gym employee. He pled guilty to non-criminal harassment charges. Back in 2000, by the way, he was sentenced to 5 years probation. And that was because he pleaded guilty again to a gun possession charge. Also coming up is rapper 21 Savage. He'll be performing with stops in Adelaide, Perth, Sydney, and Melbourne. In 2014, Savage was convicted of felony drug charges in Fulton County, Georgia. In June of 2018, he was involved in another controversy when he pulled out a firearm at the pool party, and he was arrested in 2019 by the Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. He was arrested by ICE in a targeted operation. He was charged with 1 count of possession of a Schedule II controlled substance and 1 count of possession of a gun, which, by the way, like whatever, I guess he's got good character to be able to perform in Australia because, as I said, he's performing. Well, this is virtually the same dates I'm supposed to be on stage. He's there. So I don't know. Why. I'd love to see this character test. By the way, I loved when I was looking this up, like Lil Wayne had performed in the past. And obviously, we know that he spent 8 months in prison for a criminal gun possession case. But the best part is that Lil Wayne, when he actually did perform in Australia, because they didn't care about that, they didn't care about any of his criminal history, they did allow him to perform in 2018. And when he was on stage, someone threw a drink at him, and he kind of sort of maybe threatened to shoot the whole crowd while he was in Australia. Take a listen.
So let me let you know, where I'm from, I think y'all know that's the States. We don't throw on stage because all my got pistols and they don't know who to shoot at.
Wasn't banned before, was not banned after. I'm just trying to to calculate what's really happening in Australia. Well, in case you missed some of those performances, Travis Scott will be there. He'll be there in Sydney in October. Now, Travis Scott was arrested in June of this year at 2 o'clock in the morning on charges of trespassing and disorderly intoxication. But his lawyer did get those charges dropped. But then he got arrested again in France last month, in August. And the Paris prosecutor's office said in a statement, I can confirm that on August 9th, 2024, police officers were called to the George Cinq Hotel and arrested a rapper nicknamed Travis Scott for assaulting a security guard. The Paris prosecutor's office eventually released him and ended up not filing any charges. You might think that might have some weight. You know, maybe some of these Australian commentators would be like, hey, we don't want this person because of character. But no drama. It's incredible. Flavor Flav. Yeah, he's also going to be in Australia performing. I cannot lie. I enjoyed watching his show, Flavor of Love, when I was just a young tot. And his background's incredible because in 1991, he pled guilty to assaulting his girlfriend, Karen Ross. He served 30 days in jail. He lost custody of his children. He fell deeper into his addiction and spoke about that addiction to cocaine, talked about his domestic violence, his marijuana charges. In 93, he was charged with attempted murder, but the charges were reduced and he was convicted for fourth-degree weapon possession and went to prison for 90 days. But in 2021, he was arrested again in Nevada on a misdemeanor charge of domestic battery. Might have popped someone again, but that charge was eventually dropped and the rapper pleaded no contest to one count of coercion. Shockingly, guys, go see Flavor Flav in Australia. He has passed the character test. And so has rapper G-Eazy. Guess what happened to him? In May of 2018, G-Eazy was arrested overseas in Stockholm, Sweden. I don't know, like if I was the Australian government, I'd be like, hey, like you got in trouble traveling to a foreign country. And this time it was for suspicion of assault and possession and use of drugs after he allegedly punched a security guard. Why is everybody punching their security guards? And then they found that he had cocaine in his pockets and he pled guilty to violent resistance, drug possession, and assault against an official in court on May 4th. But man, oh man, you guys, you're not going to believe it. He ain't banned from Australia either. He's not. Nobody has come out in the government and said, I'm looking for his application so I can deny it because I don't like his character. But me, Candace Owens, what did I do? Well, I upset the Zionist Federation. And they made a call for my visa to be banned on the basis that they don't like me. And so I was thinking that's going to be a tough sell to the public. Like, how are you going to explain to Australia? Like, we've got all of these people coming in and their character's fine, but Candace Owens, who has not been arrested and does not have any pending charges against her and who has not been in trouble overseas and who has given, I don't know, something like 500 speeches throughout her entire career, has never caused a riot or anything, she can't come in. And that, my friends, is what the media is for. Like, the media is here to sell you the impossible, you know, to tell you the virus is invisible and you've got no symptoms and you should stay home and let your mom die alone. Like that, the media has a tough job. They got to sell that to someone. And so, you know, who stepped up to the plate? A commentator named Andrew Bolt, a journalist. And he's well loved, by the way. He's big in Australia. Andrew Bolt is essentially the Sean Hannity of Australia. He's on Sky News. And he's like, I have got to make the people hate Candace Owens. And I'm just going to call her some names and take some of her clips out of context so that they realize that what's happening is a good thing, you know? It's a moral thing. Take a listen to what Andrew Bolt had to say about me.
Here we go again, calls to ban yet another commentator from coming here and poisoning the minds of impressionable Australians. This time, new Immigration Minister Tony Burke says he's considering banning American commentator Candace Owens from touring Australia next month, giving speeches. She's also going to New Zealand. Now, Owens is huge on the internet. She has more than 5 million followers on Instagram alone, billed as a fearless conservative. Well, she's not actually conservative, she's a total kook, and Jewish groups want her banned for alleged anti-Semitism. Now, you may have heard Owens on 2GB this morning with Ben Fordham saying any ban on her would be crazy.
Quite surprised to see that. They're like, don't give her a visa. She's a bad person. But I promise you, it is not going to harm you to hear different ideas.
Well, that sounds reasonable, doesn't it? And Fordham, who I generally respect and like, implied that these accusations that Owens preaches anti-Semitism really just came down to something she once said about Adolf Hitler, which she assured us was taken out of context. In this case, Fordham is badly wrong. Owens is a sick woman, and it shocks me that Australians are paying $95 a head.
So that's what he came up with. Andrew Bolt sat around with a team of producers and they were like, hey, so we had Candace booked to be on Sky News. They did. I was booked to be on there that exact same day. We canceled her because obviously if she came on, she would be able to defend herself and people would realize that we are actually the kooks. So what should we cook up? And someone in there was like, poisonously ignorant. Oh, yeah, that's good. Let's run that. They actually have that there at the bottom. She's poisonously ignorant. And then Andrew Bolt reminds people, I'm a kook. Well, there you go. Take it to the bank. Forget all these rappers coming in that have got, drug charges and domestic assault and attempted murder charges that they maybe be. Candace Owens is a kook and poisonously ignorant. And that, my friends, is the reason the Australian government wants my visa denied. What does that sound like to you? Well, I can tell you what, the Australian people responded and they were not with it. I love this. You got to go over to his Facebook page. It's exceptional. Just like actually look up on Facebook, Candace Owens, Andrew Bolt, every single comment trashing him. This person writes, I did like your show, but you are barking up the wrong tree here. I would prefer to listen to Candace than Bolt. You just ticked off a large section of your audience. I don't agree with you on this, Andrew Bolt. I think we need more people like Candace Owens. Steve writes, does Andrew Bolt also advocate for a ministry of truth? Candace Owens speaks truth backed up with facts. History is full of uncomfortable truths. Surely, Andrew doesn't want to erase historical facts that make him uncomfortable, does he? Here's an idea. Andrew should talk to Candace. He should engage in actual dialogue with the person he disagrees with before slandering them by calling them an anti-Semite. Thank you, Steve. Shorn writes, she is fantastic. A few people are having their feathers ruffled because of her comments about Israel. But hey, this is Australia, not Israel, the US, or Europe, and she can say what she wants. She, as a Christian, is standing up for her beliefs and shooting down the stupid idea that we cannot criticize Israel and their policies. I mean, this really sucks as he tried so hard and people know exactly what this is about. It's one post from the Zionist Federation, which is the reason why you have now been sent marching orders to pretend that a podcaster, mother of three Catholic, is a villain who shouldn't be allowed into the country. The comments go on. Richard Hindle writes, Australia became a police state many years ago. The politicians and media think it is up to them to decide what and who to censor. Troy Ackerley writes, looks like Bolt has finally been bought out. He would have been all for this once upon a time. Tino says it's easy to use terms like racist or anti-Semitism as a shield and deflection. People are more awake than ever. We know that there are people higher up pushing the division and distraction. Many people are just anti-Zionist, anti-corruption, anti-government controlled money, siphoning policies, and hiding behind these false causes. Barbara writes, Andrew, he should learn some history before he opens his mouth. Candace is a super truth-speaking person. And it goes on and on. I mean, literally, it just goes on and on. So what are we to make of this? Of every comment. These are in a row, by the way. I was not like picking comments that were nice. This is just in a row. He gets inundated by people saying, you are full of crap, despite the fact that the media applauded him. Like I said, they just give a round of applause to themselves now, right? Like this, they're going to start writing about Tucker Carlson, round of applause, we're all calling him a Nazi, and the people aren't going to care at all. In the same way that Andrew Bolt and his colleagues are all writing articles and saying things about me, but the people don't care. And what we should make of it is that they don't work for us. Okay. They resent us, as I have said. They resent you. They resent me. They don't like people who have the nerve, who have the audacity, who are deigned to think for themselves, and who aren't believing any of the headlines. The headlines have lost their power. And so what you really see when you see him sound so bitter and sound so angry is, I can't believe they're spending $95 a ticket. Oh, I can't believe. Instead of buying a ticket to see some of these rappers, then you can believe it. That's totally fine with you. Has Andrew Bolt, can somebody research, has he done a single segment looking into any of the performers that are being allowed into the country? My best guess is no, which is even more amazing, right? Because he's super upset that a Black woman is coming to speak about how she came from nothing and made something out of herself and believes in conservative principles and believes in free market capitalism. That version of a Black person is like, no, that can't happen. But rappers speaking about guns, having a few charges, talking about drugs, talking about sleeping with people, thumbs up from the media. Yeah. The poison is me. I just want to be clear. So thank you, Andrew Bolt, for embarrassing yourself. And what will happen now, who knows? Maybe I do get my visa banned from Australia, but it will have, just like with the Tucker Carlson thing, the opposite desired effect. People are going to start to wake up and wonder who the heck is making these decisions. How does it take one call from the Zionist Federation of Australia to make it so that a mother of three can't come in to speak? Who's really in charge here? Because clearly you are not reflecting the views of the people of Australia. All right, guys, I want to remind you about 7 Weeks Coffee. It's a company that aligns perfectly with our mission as conservatives and Christians. They're on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, one cup of coffee at a time. At 7 weeks of a baby's development, the baby is the size of a coffee bean, so that's where it gets its name from. And it's the first time that a heartbeat is clearly detected on an ultrasound. That's why they donate 10% of every sale to support ultrasound services at pregnancy care centers across the country. 7 Weeks Coffee is launching an exciting new initiative called Drink More Coffee, Save More Lives, because they are close to saving 5,000 lives. Not only do I love their coffee, but I know that you guys will too. I have been seeing you guys that are tagging me already in your stories with you drinking their coffee. That's amazing. If you haven't had a chance to try 7 Weeks, you can now save up to 25% on your order. Just go to 7weekscoffee.com and use code Candace to save up to 25%. Make the commitment to drink 7 Weeks Coffee every morning, and you'll be a part of funding the pro-life movement and helping save over 5,000 lives and counting. That's 7weekscoffee.com and use code Candace. All right, guys, now moving on very quickly, I want to cover this Trump IVF story because people are split, people are divided. Some people are saying he's gone too far, it's a bridge too far, I'm not voting for Donald Trump. Of course, we have to cover this as a news item because it's important. It's important to keep your pulse on what's happening in politics so you're not shocked by the results. And obviously, leading up to this, first, we had Trump speaking about how he was going to protect reproductive rights. And pro-life people were very upset about that. And some people, Lila Rose being one of them, spoke out and said that he doesn't deserve the pro-life vote. And other people raised a legitimate concern. Like, listen, okay, so what's your alternative? To have Kamala Harris get elected? And do you think she's going to be good for the pro-life movement when they're having abortions outside of the DNC, free abortions outside of the DNC happening in trucks? Fair question. Well, moving on from that, you have Trump, who has now been interviewed by NBC News. I hate when he sits down with the left because I just think it's a waste of time. I don't think it's moving the dial any, but he's made that decision to sit down with them. And he has essentially said that if he is elected, he would protect access to in vitro fertilization. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
IVF has been an issue that has become political. A lot of people talking about it. What's the Trump administration going to do when it comes to IVF if you get elected?
Right. Well, as you know, I was always for IVF right from the beginning. As soon as we heard about it, it's fertilization and it's helping women and men and families, but it's helping women able to have a baby. Some have great difficulty, and a lot of them have been very happy with the results, as you know. And what we're doing this because we just think it's great, and we need great children, beautiful children in our country. We actually need them. And we are going to be, under the Trump administration, we are going to be paying for that treatment. So we are paying for that treatment.
All Americans who want it?
For all Americans that get it, all Americans that need it. So we're going to be paying for that treatment, or we're going to be mandating that the insurance company pay.
Hit this issue hard one way and you say, well, this is wrong, they're going to be hurt by that. And because you're not realizing their struggle to start a family. Now, on the other side of that, which I think they don't recognize, is that for many people, IVF has become just like a shopping thing. You know, you find a surrogate, you get that woman pregnant, you have a woman, they're doing in vitro fertilization, and they're doing it for vain reasons. You know, I mean, a perfect example of this was when you had Chrissy Teigen, who was pregnant. She already had children, okay? She was pregnant, and at the same time, she was also using a surrogate and going through the IVF process with the surrogate. And you just go, this is just all of the excess in the world. And when you start to read articles from people who speak about what women go through, right? using IVF process. And then you start to realize that now there is this element of homosexuality to it, where a lot of people that are being drawn towards this are people who can't naturally have families, forget struggling with fertility, but can't naturally have families. And they just view this as an easy option that they can continually throw money at. It's a deep conversation to have. I don't think Trump is up to date on all of these arguments. I think that he probably is hearing from people. Tons of women are struggling. You know, we want to have the female vote. People are struggling with fertility. He's thinking of, fertility. Of course, you want to help them get fertility. And so he has a surface opinion on it and probably doesn't really comprehend why there is so much of this backlash. And I hope that the backlash is going to force him to learn more about this issue, learn more about the complications, learn more about what the baby even goes through. And it's a lot. It is a lot. And there's a time and a place to speak about all of those things. But I do want to say that I agree with the assessment that people have. It is down to a two-horse race. It is Kamala or it is Trump. Okay, so if you are going to abstain from voting over this issue, to abstain from voting is to cast a vote for Kamala Harris. And like I said, they're on the extreme side of that. And maybe the middle ground is, how do you save the most lives, right? And so I just encourage people to be realistic about the options that are before us. But I also want to say to people, allow others to lodge their complaints. Like, we should be holding our politicians' feet to the fire and letting them know when we're upset. That's not a wrong thing to do. But don't say, hey, go vote for Kamala, because to show him how upset you are. We don't want that conclusion as well. All right, guys, we will keep monitoring that issue. Before we get into your comments, I can't wait to hop into the chat and see what you guys are saying, because I'm all fired up today. I do just want to remind you guys about American Financing, because I love them. They really are helping so many Americans. There are so many people that are stressed because the monthly income just doesn't seem to be covering the bills anymore. Most Americans are actually feeling this way every single day because things are just so ridiculously expensive, and people are reaching for their credit cards to cover basics like childcare, insurance, power, even food. It is tough. And if you're going through that, please call my friends at American Financing, because they are helping hardworking Americans just like you tap into their home's equity to pay off their high interest debt and even create some additional savings to be ready for whatever life throws your way. With interest rates finally dropping, a company like American Financing that never charges any upfront or hidden fees is the perfect partner to help you get into a better financial position. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving homeowners over $800 a month on average. Waiting is not an option. Call today. You may delay 2 mortgage payments. Call 800-795-1210. That's 800-795-1210. Or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. All right, what are you guys saying? First, before I get into your live comments, the Xavier Poussard interview blew up. That made me so happy because I think around the world, we're kind of starting to lock arms and realize we're dealing with the same thing, whether you're in Australia, whether you're in France, whether you're in America. We're dealing with a totalitarian media ecosystem which refuses to tell the truth, even when the evidence is overwhelming. And what better example of that than Brigitte Macron and the overwhelming amount of evidence that was trudged up over the course of 3 years by this brave reporter. Well, Eamons writes, Candace, if you were wrong, they would have sued you and your entire neighborhood. I hear nothing from them, just crickets. Keep going, girlfriend. Yeah, all they do, like I said, is crazy. It's all the same stuff. It's boring. Actually, we're bored. It's worse than, we don't even hate you more than we are just bored by you. We hate the boredom that you guys inspire. Wander Gaudy writes, the pedophilia connection to the story is truly upsetting. Yes, a lot of that going around. The media seems to full-time defend pedophiles. I don't know why that is. I do not know why that is, but it should disturb you. Ashley writes, now when people say love is love, I hope they are not thinking this is that. A 40-year-old with a child is not love, it's abuse and it's manipulation. Yes, and that part of the story, not even the French media will touch, because that evidence is too concrete of their ages when they met. And so despite the fact that they presented that book at the beginning of the relationship to try to make that the official narrative, it took very quickly for people to do the maths and realize, okay, when was Emmanuel Macron a student here in this drama class? Okay, when was Brigitte allegedly teaching this drama class? Wait a second, the math isn't mathing unless we're girl mathing. We shouldn't be girl mathing. And yeah, this looks like a case of I'm not going to say it. Yes, I am. It looks like a case of pedophilia. All right, guys, jumping into some of the live chats. Jay Berger writes, hey, Candace, is it possible that Ella Emhoff is America's Brigitte Macron? Where there is smoke, there is fire. You know what? I actually am not so keen on like going after the family members. I always feel, and I don't really know much about Ella Emhoff, but I know they were kind of going after the son. And I'm just like, you know what? The kids, this is not the life that they chose. And so I'm like personally all about going for the actual politicians who have a role. But I think like for the kids, I just kind of am like, you know what? I do feel somewhat badly for the kids being thrust into the spotlight. Anwar Abu Bakr writes, the media said he's way out of control. I just feel like I'm the only one not pretending. I'm not out of control. I'm just not in they control. That is a quotation from Kanye West. That is true. And that is the Tucker statement now too. It should be, because they're all saying Tucker's out of control, and he's not. He is clearly just not in their control any longer. And that is what drives them crazy. They hate when you're no longer corporate, because then you don't have to play by these weird rules, these weird implications that there are certain narratives that you're not allowed to trip over. Sarah writes, the left controls Spanish media and vote. My Colombian family is brainwashed. We need Candace en Español. Spread truth through Kamala's core. Yes, it's everywhere. I mean, the media is a brainwashing entity, but they're losing the power. It's why, even, I don't know if you caught this, but they're banning X in Brazil, because they're realizing that people are getting around the mainstream media narrative, and that's where their anger comes from. That is why they sound so unhinged, even as they're accusing others of being unhinged. Ellie writes, any plan to sit down with Donald Trump? I feel like a conversation between you two would break every media outlet. You know, of course, I would always sit down with Trump, and I would ask him none of the questions that he's being asked, because I'm bored of those questions. I am just, like I said, so bored of the left and the right now. And I just don't care to hear him have to answer questions about various things that don't actually amount to anything other than the left trying to paint him like a monster. And then you have the right who are like doing the exact same thing. I mean, I'm just bored. I'm just so bored with politics right now. I feel like I'm watching a movie, and I've seen it way too many times. And it's not a good movie. It's not a good movie to watch. Brown Eye Star writes, Aussie here. No one I know watches the mainstream media. Sorry to hear this. I will make a stink to my MP. Thank you. Make a stink to your MP. Make a stink to your MP. And then just jumping into the chat right now, someone asking if I'm going to run for president. No, I hate politics. I hate politicians. The only politician I like right now, okay, I'm probably being a little hyperbolic, but like Thomas Massey. The only way I'm running for office is if it's with Thomas Massey. So if he does president, I'll be his VP. I've already told him that. That's the deal. Otherwise, I'm simply not interested. This person says Palestine is gone. All politicians are in the exact same club. That is why the USS Liberty, I am planning on discussing the USS Liberty. I know I promised you guys that a long time ago, but I wanted to actually get footage, and it was not an easy process to get access to Getty footage. And so we were kind of working on that, but that should be coming to you guys in the next couple of weeks. Other than that, you guys, I appreciate you watching the show today. I appreciate those of you that are keeping not just Tucker independent, but keeping me independent. Those of you who have taken the moment to go to locals.com and support the show in whatever capacity you can to keep us free, even if it's $1 a month, $2 a month, maybe it's $50 a month, whatever it is, it keeps us free, it keeps us happy, and it keeps them angry. So please continue to support us. And I promise that I will continue to commit myself to pissing off the mainstream media by simply telling the truth and accepting that you guys are capable of thinking and not being lied to. We'll see you guys tomorrow.